Why didn't the 9 profound tower seal the spirit stone mine with the vein suppression spirit lock formation? Sealed, they are naturally sealed. But it doesn't look like the meridian suppression spirit lock great array. Treasure Lord was naturally beside himself with joy at this moment. No matter what, Ancestor Thieving Heaven had already secretly opened a gap in this formation. As long as he was willing, he could use the instincts of the spirit-seeking mouse clan to open this gap at any time. I'm afraid this is the inheritance that Ancestor Thieving Heaven left behind for our spirit-seeking mouse clan. It is a pity that in the last 10,000 years, no spirit-seeking mouse clan's younger generation was able to inherit any of his inheritance. Thieving Heaven Laozu had left an ingenious hole in the formation of the 9 profound tower spirit stone mine, making it so that the 9 profound tower had not discovered it in the last 10,000 years. And this hole was not a hole. In fact, it was opened by the instinct of the spirit-seeking mice. Lu Ping quickly asked, "Can this spirit stone mine be closed after it is opened?" Debao said, "Of course it can be closed. Our mouse demon race is good at running small streams over a long period of time. We will not do something like killing the goose that lays the golden eggs to catch the fish." Lu Ping nodded. "That's good. Let's go find the other treasures first. This spirit vein will come last." Everyone agreed. Stealing the spirit stone mine was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. Moreover, the mine itself could not be left, so it was the same when they excavated it. At this time, it was more important to find the Thieving Heaven Divine Axe and Thieving Heaven Pill. Debao placed the chiseled stones back into the wall one by one, and the broken stones reformed into a complete stone wall. The group moved forward for another 100 feet, and along the way, they could still see the traces left behind by Qing Hu and the rest when they entered the inheritance. And Debao also found more than 10 things in this distance. Although none of them were precious, the most precious were only 2 ordinary strange items. There was no lack of a mid-grade spirit stone, a low-grade magic tool, and other things that were dispensable in the eyes of the group. However, everyone could see that every item that Debao found had been carefully hidden by someone, clearly the work of Laozu the Thieving Heaven. As a Dharma adept, why would he spend so much energy on these insignificant things? No one could figure out what this ancestor was thinking. Only Debao was happily looking around for them. "It's here. Last time we were ultimately stopped here." Qing Hu looked at the barrier in front of the tunnel entrance and turned to speak to Lu Ping. After the giant rat's carcass disappeared, Lu Ping saw that there was a secret chamber behind the carcass. It was just that no one noticed it because it was blocked by the giant rat's carcass, not even their divine senses. Lu Ping used his divine sense to explore the entrance of the secret room, and found that this time, his divine sense had successfully entered the secret room through the hole. Not only that, the thick spiritual qi in the stone room was also leaking out from this secret room, and the branch vein that the Thieving Heaven Laozu had drawn from the Jishuan Mountain spirit vein was in that secret room. Lu Ping turned to Debao and said, "After we return, before we bury the Thieving Heaven Laozu's corpse, see if there are any treasures hidden in it." Debao and Lu Ping had been partners for a long time, so he naturally knew what Lu Ping meant. So he nodded and said, "Don't worry." Although the stone room was huge, the secret room was extremely small, especially the entrance to the secret room, which was not high. Otherwise, it would not have been blocked by the corpse of the giant rat. Debao could be considered short and fat, but he still had to lower his head slightly to pass through the entrance of the secret room. However, the height of the door was about the same as that of the shriveled old man, who had been the weapon spirit of the heaven-stealing divine axe. The two entered the secret room one after another, and the first thing they saw was a 5 feet tall pitch-black pill furnace, standing in the center of the secret room. Lu Ping and Debao looked at each other, and they could see the excitement in each other's eyes, because both of them could see that the pill furnace in front of them was a magic treasure pill furnace that was fused with a treasure restriction. There were 2 big words engraved on the black and shiny furnace wall: Thieving Heaven. This was the most direct connection to Thieving Heaven Laozu that Lu Ping and the others saw after entering this treasure trove. Previously, Everyone had almost confirmed that this treasure trove was left by thieving heaven Laozu, and there was also the giant rat corpse, and the axe spirit treasure lying in the stone room. But after all, the cultivation level of the rat corpse could not be seen, and the spirit treasure spirit had long lost its memory inheritance, so there was no evidence that could directly prove that this treasure trove was left by thieving heaven Laozu. But now that this magic treasure pill furnace was engraved with the words thieving heaven, it made Lu Ping very clear that this treasure trove was indeed left by thieving heaven Laozu. Lu Ping walked forward and slapped the wall of the pill furnace, and the lid flew up. De Bao jumped on the edge of the pill furnace, looked inside the pill furnace, then sniffed and said, "There were pills inside, but after such a long time, they have already become useless pills." De Bao looked at the jade slip suspiciously, just like how Lu Ping did, and after a while he exclaimed, This is impossible." Lu Ping smiled. "Why is it impossible otherwise? How could thieving heaven Laozu pass the first thunder trial and advance to the middle Dharma stage? Without the ninth lightning strike, the practitioner's ability will be lower than that of the same level practitioners, but the key is that they will not have a chance to improve further in the future. This Thunder Calamity Panacea is actually a one-off deal. De Bao was still unwilling to give up. He said, "I think this panacea is still useful, especially for those practitioners who are not very confident of surviving the lightning strikes." Lu Ping said, "Rather than risking your life to overcome the first 8 lightning bolts, it's better to give it a shot on the 9th lightning bolt. At the very least, you'll have a chance to improve after you succeed. Or, you can make more preparations after you overcome the lightning tribulation and strengthen your foundation. It's better than failing at the last moment." De Bao cried out, "Boss, do you think everyone is like you, hugging a treasure and summoning lightning strikes together to survive? There are thousands of practitioners in the world of practice, but how many of them can reach the mid-Dharma stage? How many practitioners reach the early Dharma stage as their limit? How many early Dharma adepts who summon their first lightning strike eventually fall at the 9th lightning strike? If there is a panacea that avoids the 9th lightning strike, and a practitioner who is on the verge of death after surviving the first 8 lightning strikes, why would they care about their lifespan and the slowing down of their growth? Their priority would be to survive." Lu Ping thought about it, and felt that what Zhou Donghuang said made sense. As he continued to search for a jade scroll that was still intact, he sighed and said, "What you said makes sense, but can't you take a good look at the contents of the jade scroll? How many types of spirit herbs are there in the world of practice today that are used to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill?" De Bao was taken aback. He took a closer look at the various types of spirit herbs recorded in the jade scroll and gasped. He said, "My goodness, these are all priceless items that have disappeared from the world of practice a long time ago. If the Calamity Thunder Pill really needs to be refined with these things, then it's really not worth it." This time it was Lu Ping who said, "It's something that can save a life. How could it be worth it? It's just that the rare herbs used to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill might not have disappeared from the world of practice." De Bao gasped and said, "Boss, you mean to say that these rare herbs only exist in the world of practice in the holy lands of the human race and the giant demon tribes? Could it be that the ancestor of the thieving heaven targeted the 9 mystical tower to steal the spirit herbs from the 9 mystical towers' herb garden to refine the Calamity Thunder Pill?" Lu Ping picked up a jade scroll and looked at it as he said, "That's just one possibility. The treasures in the thieving heaven's inheritance have always been hidden for the sake of hiding, not because they are valuable. This is the nature of us spirit-seeking mice. Treasures are important, but it is more important to hide them well." De Bao had previously been surprised by the endless number of treasures in the thieving heaven's inheritance, but De Bao explained it like this. Therefore, no one can know the location of all the treasures in a thieving heaven's inheritance, and no one will know whether the treasures in a thieving heaven's inheritance have been searched or not. Therefore, every time a thieving heaven's inheritance is discovered, after a period of large-scale excavation, there will still be a continuous flow of people entering the thieving heaven's inheritance to search for treasures. Occasionally, Someone will be lucky enough to find 1 or 2 items, causing every thieving heaven's inheritance to become a treasure land that will last for tens or even hundreds of years. It can be considered a miracle in the cultivation world. The secret room had 4 stone walls, 3 of which were filled with spirit pills, spirit herbs, and pill recipes. Only 1 stone wall was empty. It was just a stone wall. But at this time, Lu Ping's attention was attracted by this empty stone wall. Debeo, go call the green fox here. One of Lu Ping's palms was already on this wall, and his eyes were no longer flickering with green light, but green golden light that illuminated the entire wall. His eyes had also turned golden red, and when he looked at Debeo was so frightened that he took a step back. The group spent several hours in the treasure trove. Cyan Fox refined and nurtured the Sky Snatcher's divine axe for a while. When she was certain that the artifact's spirit had been nurtured enough, she joined in the treasure hunt. When the green fox came in, Lu Ping's palms were already on the stone wall. At this time, not only Debeo and the green fox, but the others also sensed that something was wrong. They all stood outside the secret room and looked in. They saw 2 dense bluish-purple lights flowing along the arms of the green fox and into the stone wall that Lu Ping's palms were on, and the front of the stone wall was dyed blue. Seeing the green fox come in, Lu Ping asked, "Can you use the thieving divine axe well?" The green fox looked at the stone wall and said, "I can use it well, but the more subtle monster trainers may need more time to practice." The green fox took out the thieving divine axe. The shriveled old man's appearance was obviously based on the appearance of the thieving Laozu from 10,000 years ago. But when he saw Lu Ping, he immediately nodded and bowed. Lu Ping asked, "Do you remember anything about this stone wall?" The thieving divine axe shook his head, and with a terrified expression he said, "No, I don't remember anything." Lu Ping nodded at the green fox and said, "Listen to my instructions later. Use the spirit treasure in your hand to cut a hole in this stone wall." Before the green fox could reply, Debeo at the side already started to make a fuss. "Boss, is there some treasure hidden behind this stone wall? I said that 3 of the 4 walls in this secret room have stone shelves, and only this side is empty. Boss, your eyes are really sharp." Lu Ping waved his hand, and the amethyst wasp king was sent into the golden house, and he scolded with a smile, "Stop flattering me. It is hard to say whether this stone wall is a blessing or a curse. In a while the green fox, Debeo, and Samling will follow me in, and the others will wait here and continue to search for the thieving heaven inheritance. If we do not return in 3 days, Qin you will leave with everyone and immediately head north to Ingtian Courtyard and return to the Northern Sea." Lu Qin wanted to say something, but the nearby Debeo had already thought of something, and he said with a trembling heart, "Boss, behind this stone wall is the entrance to the 9 profound palace grotto heaven, opened by the thieving heaven ancestor, right?" 3 5-colored rays of light rose from behind Lu Ping, and they stuck to the stone wall in 3 different directions. Lu Ping turned around and smiled. "You are right, green fox, do it, remember, cut not hack." The 3 5-colored rays of light stuck to the stone wall, and with the help of these 3 5-colored restriction-breaking talismans, the entire stone wall finally began to transform into a wave-like barrier. At this time, the blade of the thieving heaven divine axe fiercely slashed at the barrier, and a crack appeared on the barrier, but it quickly began to close up. Lu Ping's hands, which had been stuck close to the barrier, suddenly inserted into the crack that had yet to close up, and with a sudden pull, Lu Ping tore open a large hole in the crack. Spirit qi, denser than in the secret room, gushed out of the hole. Behind the hole was clearly a place with even denser spirit qi. Lu Ping entered the hole first, and Green Fox followed closely, followed by Debeo and Samling. Then, the hole in the barrier gradually closed up, and it became a stone wall again. In an unknown location, a spatial door suddenly opened. Lu Ping was the first to step out of the door, followed by 2 familiar presences rushing towards him from the left and right. However, these 2 presences were extremely strong, almost at the Avatar realm. Lu Ping was the first to step out of the spatial door, and he was the first to step out. Lu Ping was shocked, and he slashed out with his thin water-long stream sword. and the sharp sword aura rushed towards both sides like water from a broken dam. Then, he heard two clear cries, and a large number of green feathers fell from the sky. This time, it was Lu Ping's turn to be shocked. When these two auras had rushed down from the sky, the impact that each of them had on Lu Ping was no less than that of a mid-Dharma adept. How could Lu Ping be forced into such a pathetic state by two hasty slashes? At this time, Green Fox, Debao, Samling, and the others jumped out of the door one after another. Seeing the thin water-long stream sword circling around Lu Ping, they all felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Green Fox's strength was second only to Lu Ping, and she quickly discovered the two attackers. She said, "Each of us, let's deal with one each. Let's end this quickly, or else something might happen." Unexpectedly, Lu Ping raised his hand to stop her. He said, "There's no rush, there's something fishy about this." The two auras slowly approached Lu Ping and the others, but they maintained a certain distance, as if they were extremely wary of Lu Ping's two slashes. At this time, Lu Ping raised his voice and said, "Elders Mu Wan, would you please show yourself?" Mu Wan? Green Fox was taken aback, and even Samling and Debao were surprised. Two middle-aged men dressed in green walked out slowly from behind a slope. The two of them, who had originally looked exceptionally tall and dignified, had two slashes on their chests and abdomen, and they looked extremely pathetic. The two of them looked at Lu Ping, and the others with doubtful expressions, but they were also unusually cautious. The one on the left asked slowly, "You're not disciples of the Nine Xian Tower. Who are you?" Lu Ping did not answer directly, but asked, "Are the two of you from the Mulwan tribe that has lived here for generations?" The two Mulwan looked at each other, and the one on the right was obviously impatient. He asked loudly, "Who are you? Tell us quickly, or we'll send out a warning and gather the Nine Xian Tower's disciples to surround and kill you." At this time, Lu Ping finally calmed down. He chuckled and said, "I believe the two of you have already confirmed who we are. Moreover, if the two of you wanted to gather the Nine Xian Tower's disciples, I'm afraid you would have done so long ago. Why wait until now?" The two Mulwan kept their mouths shut, and only stood in the distance, facing off against Lu Ping and the others. They did not send out any warning, or gather the Nine Xian Tower's disciples. Lu Ping seemed to have expected this, and he directly ignored the two Mulwan. He beckoned to the one behind him and said, "Debao, this should be the Nine Xian Tower's grotto heaven that specializes in cultivating spirit herbs. Hurry up and pick the valuable, important, and mature ones. Also look for all the spirit herbs recorded in the 2-pill recipes you saw earlier. Remember, do not stray more than 30 li from me." Debao chuckled and said, "There are truly too many treasures here. I, Debao, have been waiting for a long time." As he finished speaking, a yellow cloud had already used the earth evasion technique and disappeared. Chapter 1203. It was obvious that this was a grotto heaven in the 9 profound tower that was specially used to cultivate spiritual herbs. The terrain inside the grotto heaven was uneven, but it was filled with spiritual herb gardens. All kinds of spiritual herbs grew in different types, and they grew in different areas. Occasionally, there were some medicinal trees that formed a lush forest. The rich spiritual qi nourished all the life in the grotto heaven. Lu Ping felt as if he could feel the vigorous vitality in the grotto heaven, even as he breathed. Spirit-seeking mouse? The wood phoenix cultivator on the right looked in the direction that Debao had disappeared in bewilderment. It was unknown whether he was asking Lu Ping, the pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator on the left, or perhaps he was muttering to himself. Lu Ping seemed to know that Debao had not gone far. He said loudly, "Be careful. Don't make it too obvious. Only take what's useful. Don't give yourself away too much." The two wood phoenixes looked at each other. It was obvious that these people were treating them as nothing. Moreover, it seemed like they were planning to make a small long-term investment. Qing Hu also looked at Lu Ping in surprise. "Are you planning to come again in the future?" Lu Ping looked in the direction of the two wood phoenixes and said, "Whether or not I can come again depends on these two seniors." When Qing Hu looked over, the two wood phoenixes were already whispering to each other. She couldn't tell what they were discussing. Meanwhile, Lu Ping once again summoned the amethyst queen bee from the House of Gold. He ordered her to lead her subjects into the grotto heaven in a grandiose manner. Similarly, according to Lu Ping's orders, the amethyst bees would not leave the 30-kilometer radius that Lu Ping's divine sense could cover. Amethyst bees, the two wood phoenixes didn't even have time to discuss. They stared dumbfoundedly at the 3,000 amethyst bees charging into the sea of spiritual herbs under the amethyst queen bee's guidance. However, in just a short while, the two of them gasped again as they watched the 3 or 15-year-old children walking into the cave. One of them exclaimed in a low voice, "Green sea snake." The other person muttered to himself, "Wind snake, water snake, and ice snake. The descendants of the 3 strongest tribes of the green sea snake." Another 2 streaks of light descended from the sky. They were 2 attractive middle-aged women, both of them at the early Dharma stage. It was obvious that they had come to meet up with the 2 wood phoenix adepts, because they had discovered the abnormality of this place. However, just like the 2 wood phoenix adepts, these 2 women did not attack Lu Ping and Green Fox. Green Fox was a little uneasy as she said, "What's going on? If these 4 were to join forces against us, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand in a short period of time. But they're all from the Wood Phoenix tribe. Once they warn us, we'll be like turtles in a jar." Lu Ping smiled faintly. If these people really wanted to hand us over to the 9 Mystical Tower, they would have warned the 9 Mystical Tower the moment we entered this cave. In fact, they didn't do anything at all. But when you came in just now, they attacked. Lu Ping nodded and said, "The 2 wood phoenixes indeed have strong training, but their abilities may not be that high. Even if you were to attack, those 2 might not be able to defeat you even if they joined forces." Green Fox was in disbelief. "How is that possible? The Wood Phoenix tribe is a top-level demon clan, and they are the direct descendants of the Luan Taoist, who is as famous as the Fire Phoenix. With their level of training, they might not be weaker than me among the same level of practitioners." Lu Ping laughed loudly. "How many wood phoenixes are left of the Wood Phoenix tribe in the world of practitioners? I'm afraid the only ones left are the Wood Phoenix slaves that are raised in the caves of the various holy lands to cultivate spirit herbs. They are sacrificed at specific times to help the practitioners of the holy lands break through the bottleneck of their training. How strong do you think these Wood Phoenix slaves are? In order to control these demon slaves, why would the holy lands allow them to grow freely?" Green Fox naturally understood the logic behind this, but she still asked, "No matter what, the Wood Luan tribe is one of the most powerful tribes among the monster race. They have inherited their bloodline and memories, and this grotto heaven is rich in spirit chi and spirit herbs. It seems like the 9 Mystical Tower isn't controlling them, but imprisoning them at most." Lu Ping laughed. "You don't know this, but although these top-level demons have inherited their bloodlines and memories, these things can only support their training before they reach the core forging stage. If they want to reach the Dharma stage and still maintain their advantage as a top-level demon clan, then they have to stay in the secret cave of the Wood Phoenix tribe for a long time. Otherwise, even if they reach the Dharma stage, without the secret techniques and cultivation methods of the Wood Phoenix tribe, they can only gradually become mediocre. Furthermore, they have been imprisoned here their entire lives, and have never had any experience in fighting with others. Just now, when the 2 of them fought, they completely relied on their cultivation to win. How strong do you think they are?" The conversation between Lu Ping and Green Fox was not deliberately hidden, so the 4 Wood Phoenix cultivators heard it clearly. When Lu Ping finished speaking, the pale-faced Wood Phoenix cultivator could not help but ask, "Who are you? How do you know so many secrets of the Wood Phoenix tribe?" Lu Ping smiled. "In the end, you can't hold it in any longer. Naturally, we came in from outside the 9 Mystical Tower. As for what method we used to break through the protective array of the 9 Mystical Tower and enter, I believe that only the Wood Phoenix seniors know." The face of the Wood Phoenix cultivator with the silk scarf on his head immediately changed. He snorted coldly and said, "What are you talking about? We don't understand what you mean." Lu Ping did not comment on this person's denial. Instead, he answered the question of the Wood Phoenix cultivator, saying, Although the wood phoenix tribe is on the verge of extinction, it is not extinct. I once had a good friend of the wood phoenix tribe, and he is currently cultivating in the secret cave of the wood phoenix tribe in the East Sea, so he knows a lot about your clan. Impossible. Is that true? The silk scarf wood phoenix and the pale-faced wood phoenix almost blurted out at the same time. The two of them looked at each other, both seeing shock and hope in the other's eyes. In the end, it was the silk scarf wood phoenix who said with a slight tremble, "The wood phoenix tribe of the cultivation world really did not go extinct." Lu Ping shrugged and said, "No, but I'm afraid it won't be long. Anyway, I've only seen one Wood Luan before. I've never heard any news about the Wood Luan clan in the cultivation world for the past few hundred years. Of course, there are rumors that there are ancient spirit birds and beasts like you in the sacred land. But I'm afraid your identities are a bit awkward, so no one will treat you as part of the Wood Luan clan." Lu Ping's words were extremely straightforward. The silk scarf cultivator's face showed anger, and the pale-faced wood phoenix became even paler. The two female wood phoenix cultivators also looked at Lu Ping with unsightly expressions, but there was also a hint of loneliness. Qing Hu, on the other hand, became even more nervous, afraid that the wood phoenix would be angered by Lu Ping's sharp words and send a warning to the 9 mystical tower. Even though she still felt puzzled that the wood phoenix had not sent a warning to the 9 mystical tower, this was still what she hoped for. However, when she thought about infiltrating the inheritance cave of the 9 mystical tower, she felt an inexplicable excitement in her heart. "Fellows, if you have anything to say, just say it. Looks like this sky grotto is a place specially used by 9 profound tower to grow spiritual herbs. You fellows must be the spiritual plant farmers here, right? However, given how important this place is, it is impossible for 9 profound tower to not send some cultivators to check on it frequently." In Qing Hu's eyes, Lu Ping's words were as rude as possible, but the 4-aspect Azure Luan became calmer and calmer after hearing Lu Ping's words. It was truly strange. "You came in through the passage opened by the thieving heaven Laozu?" The 4 of them whispered to each other again. This time, it was one of the 2 female wood phoenix cultivators who spoke. Lu Ping's expression was one of certainty. "I didn't think that you would still be waiting after 10,000 years. It seems that the thieving heaven Laozu really did have some secret agreement with you when he entered this place. For you to be willing to keep this secret for almost 10,000 years, it must be because the thieving heaven Laozu promised to help you escape from the bondage of monster slaves." The female wood phoenix cultivator said fiercely, "Who would be willing to be a monster slave from birth? In every generation, other than leaving behind a few seeds, the rest of the clansmen would disappear. Needless to say, we know that they were killed by the 9 mystical tower and used to grow rare herbs to increase their cultivation." The other female wood phoenix cultivator thought of something and asked in surprise, You didn't know about this at all?" Lu Ping smiled. "That's right, but now I can roughly guess what is going on." The pale-faced wood phoenix cultivator asked, "Then what's the deal with that spirit-seeking mouse of yours?" Lu Ping said calmly, "He is my follower and also my brother." "Follower? Is there still such an existence in the cultivation world? You actually did not place restrictions on their divine senses?" The silk turban wood phoenix was somewhat surprised and emotional. The other wood phoenix's expressions changed. Even the green fox had a strange expression. Lu Ping found it funny. After placing restrictions on them, they can only be monster slaves and spirit pets like you. How can they be followers? How can they be brothers? Lu Ping did not care about what the wood phoenixes were thinking. He said directly, "Back then, thieving heaven Laozu died from his injuries after leaving this grotto heaven. He naturally could not return to save you, and he also could not leave behind his last words to save you." Lu Ping did not care about their expressions. He continued, "And if I am not wrong, the fatal injuries on thieving heaven Laozu's body were likely caused by your ancestor, right? Rather than saying that thieving heaven Laozu agreed to save you, it is more accurate to say that he was forced to do so." Chapter 1204. More than 9,000 years ago, the first time thieving Laozu stepped into the longevity grotto heaven, he was discovered by the Wood Luan demon slaves at that time. It was also at the place where Lu Ping and the rest appeared. The two mid-Dharma stage with Luan demon slaves joined forces, and heavily injured Laozu, who had just entered. Having lost the inheritance of the Wood Phoenix clan, after advancing to the Dharma stage, the strength of the demon slaves could only be considered mediocre among practitioners of the same level. But it was still not something that the Thieving Sky Patriarch could withstand. Even though he was also a mid-Dharma adept, to be able to push his cultivation to the mid-Dharma stage, it was unknown how many tricks he had used, and how many coincidences he had encountered. With his cultivation and strength, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the weakest among the practitioners of the same level. So how could he withstand the attack of two Wood Phoenix demon slaves? The heavily injured and captured thieving Laozu had no choice but to agree to the Wood Luan race's many conditions, the most important of which was that he would enter the Longevity Grotto Heaven in the future and bring the Wood Luan race's descendants out of the Grotto Heaven, so that they would not be enslaved by the Nine Xian Tower. For this, the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Grotto Heaven secretly helped thieving Laozu to steal a large number of rare herbs from the Longevity Grotto Heaven before letting him go. Of course, even if the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Longevity Grotto Heaven did not know the ways of the world, they still had to guard against thieving Laozu going back on his word after leaving the Grotto Heaven. Thus, they had a backup plan, so that thieving Laozu would not be able to enter the Grotto Heaven again. Back then, when thieving Laozu entered the Longevity Grotto Heaven, he was captured by the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves. However, at that time, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not have any eggs that had not hatched yet, so they could not let thieving Laozu take them away. And after the Wood Luan race was born, they would be turned into demon slaves by the Nine Xian Tower's divine will. Even if they were not in the Longevity Grotto Heaven, their life and death were at the mercy of the Nine Xian Tower. With no other choice, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slave had no choice but to let thieving Heaven Laozu leave, and agreed to enter the Grotto Heaven again to take the Wood Luan egg and raise it in the cultivation world. However, the Wood Luan demon slaves did not expect that the injuries they had inflicted on thieving Laozu, which were not considered serious, would be fatal. Thieving Heaven Laozu only had the cultivation of the mid-Dharma stage, but in reality, he really could not take a beating. The plan of the Wood Luan demon slaves immediately came to nothing. This wait lasted for nearly 10,000 years. That year, the ancestor of the Wood Luan demon slaves had already become the meal of some powerful person in the Nine Xian Tower, while the Wood Luan demon slaves in the Longevity Grotto Heaven secretly passed down the information that there was a flaw in the Grotto Heaven left behind by thieving Heaven Laozu, hoping that someone from the outside could use this flaw to reopen the passage to the outside world. For this reason, every generation of Wood Luan demon slaves had been secretly preparing for this. Because thieving Heaven Laozu had entered the Grotto Heaven from here, the Wood Luan demon race built their nest in a forest not far from here. With regards to this request of the Wood Luan race, Lu Ping naturally would not refuse. Since he was already here, taking away some of the Wood Luan's descendants was just a matter of convenience. Moreover, this matter would only benefit Lu Ping. The sky above the forest was connected to form a huge nest. When Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived, the two discovered that this was actually a small colony of Wood Luan. Apart from the 4 Dharma stage Wood Luan demon slaves, there were also 3 pairs of Wood Luan demon slaves. 2 pairs were at the core forging stage, while the other pair was only at the blood condensation stage. We have already gathered all of our tribe members. There are 10 of them in total, and they are all here now. However, we did not inform them of your arrival, so your followers will not meet them in the Grotto Heaven. The one who spoke was the Wood Luan cultivator with a silk scarf on his head. This person was Luan Xiao, and one of the 2 female Dharma adepts who came after him was his path companion, while the other was the path companion of the pale-faced cultivator. Lu Ping and Green Fox followed the 4 Dharma adepts of the Wood Luan race to the Grotto Heaven. They saw the pale-faced Wood Luan Qing raise his hand and slap an inconspicuous little tree near the nest. This little tree, which would at least be a top-grade spiritual material when it was fully grown, was instantly broken. However, The center of the broken little tree was hollow, and 2 snow-white eggs rolled out of it. Luanqing carefully held the 2 snow-white eggs in his hands and caressed them for a while before handing the eggs over to Lu Ping, under the dejected expression of his path companion. He said, "These are the descendants of my wife and I. Ever since our union, we have only left 5 descendants. Other than these 2 who have been hiding in secret, of the remaining 3, 2 have hatched into adults, a boy and a girl. Both are now at the core forging stage. The girl was brought to the Wuxia school by the 9 mystical tower, in exchange for a girl of the same cultivation level as the path companion of the boy. As for the other egg, it was taken away by the 9 mystical tower before it hatched. It is highly likely that it has already become someone's stomach." At this point, Luanqing's path companion's voice was slightly choked as she said, "Fortunately, the Wood Luan race has a secret technique that allows us to preserve these eggs for almost 100 years. Otherwise, if you had come 10 years later, my 2 children would have died in the eggs before they hatched." Lu Ping received the 2 eggs and carefully placed them into the house of gold. Immediately after, Luan Xiao took out another egg from the heart of another tree and handed it over to Lu Ping. Luan Xiao had also given birth to 5 eggs with his path companion. 3 of them hatched, 2 were male, and 1 was female. Of the 2 sons, 1 was exchanged for a path companion from the Purple Sun Palace, while the other had his golden core dug out by the 9 mystical tower, after he advanced to the core forging stage. As for the remaining 2 eggs, 1 of them had died due to the passage of time. Only this one was still alive. Soon after, Luan Xiao took out another egg from the roots of another tree and said, "This is fellow Taoist Luan Xiao's descendant. Both husband and wife were taken away by the 9 mystical towers, Zhu Jiuwan, a few decades ago. I believe they were used to nourish her and help her break through to the pure Yang realm. I hope that you can take this egg with you and leave behind a descendant for fellow Taoist Luan Xiao." This wasn't the end of it. Luanqing also took out another 2 eggs from an unknown place. These 2 eggs looked much fresher than the previous 4. They should have been born not too long ago. Sure enough, Luanqing said, "These 2 eggs are the descendants of fellow Taoist Luan Xiao and I. I'll have to trouble you to take them with you." When Luanqing found these 2 eggs, Lu Ping had already noticed that there were 2 more eggs together with these 2 eggs. However, Luanqing didn't take them out. Lu Ping could guess that they were still somewhat worried about him. They were afraid that their descendants would enter the tiger's den right after leaving the wolf's den. Therefore, they didn't dare to hand over all of their descendants to Lu Ping. However, Luanqing and Luan Xiao's descendants had been eggs for too long. They couldn't keep them, so they had no choice but to hand them over to Lu Ping. However, they still kept some of their descendants. However, Lu Ping still asked, "Since fellow Taoist trusts me so much, aren't you afraid that I'll turn your descendants into demon slaves in the future?" Luan Xiao smiled bitterly. "There are demon slaves on both sides. How bad can it be? Handing them over to fellow Taoist can be considered a ray of hope. I can only hope that fellow Taoist's compassion will allow the Wood Luan clan to continue to exist in the cultivation world." Lu Ping put away the 5 Wood Luan eggs and said, "I'll do my best." The 9 Profound Tower clearly didn't only have the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven to cultivate spiritual herbs. However, without a doubt, the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven was the 9 Profound Towers' most important place for cultivating spiritual herbs. Naturally, there were 9 Profound Towers cultivators stationed within the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. However, due to the existence of the Wood Luan Yao slaves, and the fact that the Heaven Grotto Heaven was incomparably vast, the cultivators guarding the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the help of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, the 9 Profound Towers' Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven remained undetected. The 9 Profound Tower had sent cultivators to guard the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven. However, due to the existence of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and the incomparably vast Heaven Grotto Heaven, the cultivators guarding the Longevity Heaven Grotto Heaven rarely paid attention to what was happening inside. Thus, with the assistance of the Wood Luan Yao slaves and Lu Ping's deliberate evasion, The 9 profound towers longevity heaven grotto heaven remained undetected. Not to mention, this was just one of the 9 profound towers longevity heaven grotto heaven. During these 3 days, Lu Ping's harvest could be described as a fruitful journey. Putting aside the fact that the 3,000 amethyst bee soldiers had brought Lu Ping several jars of amethyst bee honey, Zilan would have to spend a long time to brew the amethyst royal jelly. Just the amount of rare herbs that De Bao had brought back was enough to make Lu Ping overjoyed. In order to not leave behind too obvious a trail, De Bao had to pick and choose what he wanted. If the One Chi higher sky had appeared, Lu Ping would not have been able to finish using it even after a few hundred years. Of course, it was impossible for him to collect so many spiritual herbs in the longevity heaven grotto heaven in just 3 days. Other than this, what was even more precious was the 2 pill recipes that he had obtained from Laozu the thieving heaven, the thunder calamity pill, and the grade 6 transcendence pill. All the rare herbs that were recorded in the longevity heaven grotto heaven were collected by De Bao. Of course, there were some rare herbs that Lu Ping did not recognize, or that had already gone extinct in the cultivation world. De Bao had also found many of them, allowing Lu Ping and Junling to have a complete variety of spiritual herbs in their longevity heaven grotto heaven garden. Lu Ping had also found a few rare tea trees in the longevity heaven. He had asked him to take their seeds and branches to see if they could be planted in the golden house. The 3 days that Lu Ping had agreed on with Lu Qiner and the others had arrived. Before Lu Ping left the longevity heaven grotto heaven, Wan Qing and Wan Xiao had surprised Lu Ping again. This is the 7 aperture pear and immortal root. Lu Ping looked at the items in their hands. Even though he was surprised, he was very excited. These were all treasures that could be used to strengthen the physical body. Furthermore, this 7 aperture pear was clearly ripe. If he could find the 7 aperture pear seeds in the fruit, wouldn't he be able to use them to nurture the 7 aperture pear tree? He could also try to nurture the immortal root. In terms of preciousness, these 2 items were not inferior to the azure wood pure jade fruit that Lu Ping had once obtained. These are the 2 spiritual items that we have been secretly collecting all these years. Today we will give them to you. Lu Ping took the 2 items and said with a serious expression, "Rest assured, the Wood Luan race will definitely not go extinct." Chapter 1205. Lu Ping did not expect to receive such a pleasant surprise before leaving the longevity sky grotto. The 7 aperture pear and immortal root were rare treasures in the cultivation world that could significantly strengthen a cultivator's physical body. While these 2 treasures could not be compared to the white jade lotus root and bloody skeleton flower in Lu Ping's possession, they were comparable to the verdant wood pure jade fruit. Furthermore, Lu Ping had discovered that the 7 aperture pear was sufficiently ripe. There might even be a 7 aperture pear tree seed inside. Moreover, the immortal root was also a hidden source of vitality. Perhaps it could take root again. If that was the case, it would truly be a blessing from the heavens. The longevity sky grotto was vast. In just 3 days, Lu Ping had led De Bao, the amethyst wasps, Samling and the rest through the areas that might be guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators under the guidance of the Wood Luan. Furthermore, they had to carefully identify the types and ages of the spiritual herbs. As a result, they had only covered a third of the longevity sky grotto. However, they had already reaped such a harvest in a third of the longevity sky grotto. If they were to search through the entire winter, especially those areas guarded by 9 mystical tower cultivators, who knew what kind of harvest they would reap? When Lu Ping and the rest entered the longevity sky grotto, Lu Ping turned to Luan Qing, who had rushed over to send them off. "I am deeply grateful for fellow Taoists' help. However, although we have been cautious, quite a number of spiritual herbs have disappeared during the winter. Not to mention, some of them are extremely valuable. If the 9 mystical tower investigates, I fear that fellow Taoists will not be able to escape responsibility." Wan Qing did not mind at all. She smiled. "So what? We will die either way. None of us with Luan Yao slaves raised in the longevity sky grotto have a good ending. The 9 mystical tower will not waste the value of a single Wood Luan. It is only a matter of time before we die." Seeing the guilty expressions on Lu Ping's and the rest's faces, Luan Qing smiled and said, "Of course, we will do our best to save ourselves. However, at the very most, we can only say that we don't know anything. If the 9 mystical tower suspects you, we will need you to extricate yourself from this matter." Lu Ping nodded and turned to Azure Fox. "Let's begin." Qing Hu swung the heaven-stealing divine axe forward and tore a rift in the dimension. Lu Ping did the same thing, pulling on the sides of the rift and tearing it open. Then, the few of them rushed out of the rift and disappeared. Luan Qing was left staring blankly at the spatial crack closing before her, muttering, "I hope that the Wood Luan clan still has a chance." Outside 9 Profound Mountain, a stream of light, grand and majestic, descended upon the mountain, giving off an atmosphere that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The stream of light retracted to reveal a tall, bearded cultivator. Step by step, he walked towards the center of the mountain. The Tiani Pavilion Master and San, and Chong Sankai Chong smiled. "Qing, brother," the other said with a cheeky smile. "Brother Wei is here." This unkempt cultivator was the #1 direct disciple of the 9 mystical tower, the brother in charge of the Yuan Pavilion Wei Zhen. He was usually called Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan looked at the two of them and said in a low and hoarse voice, "What's wrong? You lost them?" Chong Sankai shrugged his shoulders and made an innocent expression, while the Yin and Yang brothel master revealed an ashamed expression and said, "Yes, we fell into their trap. They seem to have entered the thieving heaven inheritance for 3 days." Wei Yuan nodded. 3 days is not a long time. The treasures in the thieving heaven inheritance are hard to find. Usually, it takes decades to find all the treasures inside. Some greedy people even stay inside for a year or 2. Regardless of who entered, it seems that Azure Fox and Lu Tianping did not enter. Are there any traces of them now? The Tian Pavilion Master shook his head. "These people are very secretive. We have not been able to find them." Wei Yuan said, "That is to be expected. But once the people who entered the thieving heaven inheritance appear, Lu Tianping and Azure Fox will definitely come to their aid. At that time, we will not be able to let them escape again." The Tiani Pavilion Master said, "Don't worry, brother. This time, we have made even more thorough arrangements. Lu Tianping and the rest will not be able to escape." Wei Zhen glanced at the Tiani Pavilion Master and said, "Don't speak too early. I remember you saying that Lu Tianping and the rest will be captured before they can enter the thieving heaven inheritance. But what about now?" The Tiani Pavilion Master's face turned red. Who would have thought that the formation that 5th junior brother comprehended from the underworld void formation could be seen through by Lu Tianping? Wei Zhen grunted coldly and said, "That Lu Tianping probably possesses a miraculous eye technique, and it's very likely that it's one of the 3 branches of the Tripure True Pupils. Moreover, it's very likely that he's mastered it, so it wouldn't be strange for him to be able to see through old 5th's formation." Wei Zhen explained, then asked Chong Sankai, "You have fought with that Lu Tianping before. How do you think his strength compares to mine?" Chong Sankai became more serious at this moment. He spat out the small stick in his mouth and thought for a while before saying, "From the situation at that time, he is only slightly stronger than me, but he must have hidden his strength at that time. As for him being able to defeat the 4th elder of the Tenma people, although it seems powerful, don't forget that it was on the Qingming River. This person is a cultivator from overseas, and he cultivates a water attribute cultivation method. His sword ability is like a surging wave or a surging flood, but his cultivation base is so dense that it makes one's hair stand on end. That was because he had the geographical advantage. So in my opinion, his true strength is about the same as Elder Tianma." Wei Zhen nodded. Most cultivators from overseas cultivate a water attribute cultivation method. Elder Tianma was indeed careless when he fought with Lu Tianping on the Qingming River. If he was facing a cultivator of the same level, I believe that Elder Tianma would not have been so unwise. At this moment, the master of the Yin and Yang Tower hurriedly interrupted. "That is to say that Lu Tianping's strength is at most equal to eldest senior brother's? Eldest senior brother has also fought with many great cultivators before. And those people were unable to do anything to eldest senior brother. Wei Zhen pondered. In that case, this person's strength should be about the same as mine? The master of the Yin and Yang Tower continued. If the strength is about the same, then it depends on the treasures in one's hands. Eldest senior brother has a second tribulation spirit treasure, bestowed by the seniors of the sect, so this person will definitely lose to eldest senior brother. Chang Sankai curled his lips and said, that Lu Tianping possesses several great innate and supreme divine abilities. If eldest senior brother is to face this person, you should be careful. The master of the Yin and Yang Tower said unhappily. Third brother, why do you always side with an outsider? Don't forget that eldest senior brother has already condensed 2 supreme divine abilities. And he also has 2 to 3 great innate divine abilities. If he adds on the power of the second tribulation spirit treasure, it is not an exaggeration to say that no third-generation cultivators in the entire cultivation world will be a match for him. Chang Sankai smacked his lips, and in the end, he simply kept the small wooden stick that he had just spat out in his mouth. In the end, he simply did not say anything, but this disgusted the master of the Yin and Yang Tower, who was watching at the side. However, he did not open his mouth to say anything. Obviously, although they hated this bad habit of the master of the Yin and Yang Tower, they were already used to it. At this moment, it was the master of the First Origin Tower who took over and continued. This Lu Tianping had a nickname when he was in the North Sea. He was called Treasure Boy. This means that this person always has all kinds of treasures and trump cards on him, making it impossible for others to guard against him. It is hard to guarantee that this person does not have similar treasures on him. In short, this person is definitely a formidable opponent. After returning to the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, Lu Ping and the others did not leave immediately. Debao once again did a carpet search in this inheritance. Everyone had no choice but to stay and wait for him. At this moment, Lu Ping was not particularly anxious. He simply began to sort out the gains from the Longevity Grotto Heaven in the secret room. At the same time, he also began to refine the magic treasure pill furnace Thieving Heaven cauldron that had condensed a treasure restriction. As for the 5 wood luan eggs, Lu Ping had already instructed Qing, who to conceal this matter. After returning to the Thieving Heaven's inheritance, he recalled Lu Qiner and Lu Taohua back to the Golden House. There was a forest in the Golden House, but Lu Qiner still built her nest on top of the spirit demon peach tree. However, at this time, there were 5 wood luan eggs in Lu Qiner's nest. Seeing Lu Qiner's frown, Lu Taohua gloated. Qiner, looks like you really should get married. You haven't even become Luan Yu's Dao companion. But Big Brother has already given you the task of hatching the wood luan eggs. If Luan Yu finds out about this in the future, what will he think? Lu Qiner fiercely glared at Lu Taohua. Damned girl, you dare to talk nonsense. See if I don't tear your mouth apart. Lu Taohua giggled. Don't worry, Big Brother will not talk nonsense. Moreover, if you really hatch a wood luan bird, Luan Yu will be overjoyed. I believe that Luan Yu does not want the wood luan race to be extinct more than anyone else, right? Lu Qiner said. This grand aunt is doing her best for the wood luan race. I hope these 5 wood luan eggs can hatch smoothly. Lu Qiner saw Lu Taohua holding many bottles and jars as she walked around her main body. She asked, What are you doing? Lu Taohua said, These are the seeds of rare herbs that Big Brother brought out from Longevity Grotto Heaven. He hopes that they can be nurtured in the Golden House, so he asked me to take care of them. Lu Qiner smiled. In terms of nurturing spirit herbs, even the wood luan race might not be as good as Sister Peach Blossom. Inside Thieving Heaven's inheritance, Debao laughed like a madman. Ha 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 ha, found it, I knew it. Ancestor Thieving Heaven's dream was to raise the aptitude of the spirit-seeking mice. How could he not leave behind his inheritance before his death? Lu Ping was also very interested in Thieving Heaven Laozu's inheritance. He quickly asked Debao for this beast skin scroll that was sealed by layers of spirit-sealing talismans. Weighing the beast skin scroll in his hand, Lu Ping exclaimed, The beast skin of a pure young beast skin cultivator. This is a big deal. A beast skin scroll that was made from the fur of a pure young beastkin cultivator's main body was naturally not a small matter. Lu Ping carefully opened the beast skin scroll. His eyes flickered with a faint light as he carefully read the contents. His expression became increasingly strange, making De Bao feel increasingly uneasy. Chapter 1206. Boss, what is it? Lu Ping threw the beast skin scroll to De Bao. See for yourself. Supreme divine ability, sky-stealing sun-shifting art. 3 basic divine abilities. Flower grafting wood, palace shifting feather, stealing beam and swapping pillar. De Bao covered the beast skin scroll. His small eyes glanced to the left, then to the right, only to find that everyone was trying hard to hold in their laughter. Only then did he realize that he was reading the contents of the beast skin scroll in a soft voice. Everyone was attracted by his shout of finding thieving heaven Laozu's inheritance, so they naturally heard everything he said. De Bao said angrily, Okay, laugh if you want to, why do you have to hold it in so hard? Everyone burst into laughter. Normally speaking, great divine abilities or supreme divine abilities were mostly offensive and defensive. But there were also many unorthodox divine abilities, with all kinds of wonderful methods. Strictly speaking, even Lu Ping's 3 pure true pupils was considered one of the unorthodox divine abilities. And De Bao's supreme divine ability inheritance cultivation method was even more peculiar. It could be said to be the most unorthodox of unorthodox methods. From the beginning to the end, this cultivation method inheritance did not aim to attack and kill enemies, but to teach people how to dodge, how to escape, how to hide, how to break formations, how to identify treasures, how to avoid tracking, in short, how to steal without anyone noticing. And among all these divine ability inheritances, the most profound was how to break formations. Back then, the reason why thieving heaven Laozu refined the thieving heaven divine axe was to have some achievements on the path of breaking formations. There was no formation in the world that could not be broken. It only depended on the time needed to break the formation, the strength of one's strength, and the clumsiness of the method. Sky-stealing sun-shifting art relied on the ingenuity and concealment of the formation, and the price to pay was mainly time. In order to covet the rare herbs in Longevity Grotto Heaven, thieving heaven Laozu spent a total of 50 years managing this inheritance, and finally avoided 9 profound towers' eyes and ears, secretly opening a gap in 9 profound towers' formation. But in the end, man proposes, heaven disposes. Thieving heaven Laozu actually died in the hands of Longevity Grotto Heavens with Luan Fei race. All of his plans failed. With De Bao's current cultivation level, he could barely cultivate the sky-stealing sun-shifting art. However, he could only focus on the basic divine powers at most. It wasn't easy to master all of them. Right now, I'm afraid that the 9 Profound Tower has already set up an inescapable net outside the 9 Profound Mountain. I'm afraid that once we reveal ourselves, we'll be surrounded and attacked by the entire 9 Profound Tower. Lu Ping and Green Fox arrived at the end of the tunnel. This was the exit of the thieving heaven relic. Then what should we do? Actually, it is not impossible to force our way out. 9 Mystical Tower does not know that all of us have entered the thieving heaven inheritance. There should be a group of people outside 9 Mystical Mountain guarding against the people who entered the thieving heaven inheritance. We can catch them off guard. Lu Ping shook his head slightly and said, The 9 Mystical Tower isn't a fool. They've already fallen for our trap once, so how could they possibly give us another chance? We're alone, and this is the 9 Mystical Tower's territory. No matter what, we don't have the upper hand. Green Fox said. Then what should we do? Since the 9 Profound Tower has already confirmed that the thieving heaven relic is in the 9 Profound Mountain, they will find it sooner or later. Lu Ping smiled and said, It is easy for us to leave this place, and the 9 Profound Tower cannot surround us. However, I am worried that the 9 Profound Tower's cultivators will chase after us after we leave. With the 9 Profound Tower's influence in the Central Plains, it is not an exaggeration to say that there is no place for us to hide in the Central Plains. Easy. Green Fox was slightly surprised and said, As long as we can avoid their attacks, how will they know that we have entered the thieving heaven relic? We were clearly chased out of the 9 Profound Mountain by them. I am afraid that they will still be guarding the 9 profound mountain, waiting for the person who entered the thieving heaven relic to come out. Lu Ping smiled and said, that is true, but it is inevitable that the 9 profound towers people will chase after us. Outside the 9 mysterious mountain, Chang Sankai was already so bored that he was about to fall asleep. The Yin-Yang Pavilion Master looked at the 5-element Pavilion Master beside him and said, over 10 days have already passed. 5th junior brother, is there still no activity in the 9 mysterious mountain? Could it be that they have already left? The 5 elements Pavilion Master's face turned stiff. From the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master's words, it was obvious that the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master suspected that the formation he had set up in the 9 profound mountain had already been avoided. Thus, he said with dissatisfaction, the thieving heaven Laozu is the best at hiding things. Perhaps the person who entered the relic is still looking for something inside. The Yin and Yang Pavilion Master was embarrassed, but after thinking about it, he felt that the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master was right. Thus, he asked the First Origin Pavilion Master, Wei Zhen, eldest senior brother, in my opinion, the sect should just send 1 or 2 great cultivators to guard this place. With our cooperation, when the time comes, Lu Tianping and the others will be easily captured. Why do we need to waste time here? Wei Zhen glanced at him and said, in the beginning, when we set up the ambush on the 9 profound mountain, you were the one who was the most proactive. Now you are the one who has the least confidence. If the thieving heaven Laozu is going to alarm the great cultivators of our sect, just because of one Lu Tianping, then where do we hide our faces? The Yin and Yang Pavilion Master chuckled. Then Chang Sankai, who was beside him, said casually, in the end, the thieving heaven's relic is just not worth the attention of the sect. Although the thieving heaven Laozu was quite famous in the past, he was after all only a mid-dharma adept. He has stolen many things, but from the treasures that have been unearthed from the thieving heaven's relic, none of them are able to tempt the old demons of the sect. It's just that there are a lot of them. Naturally, they are not worth the attention of our dignified Holy Land sections. Chang Sansai's words were reasonable, but coupled with his sloppy demeanor, when these words were heard by others, it sounded like he was mocking and ridiculing their own sect. Fortunately, the people in the 9 profound tower seemed to be used to it. At this moment, the Yin and Yang Pavilion Master thought of something and said, that year, the thieving heaven Laozu really entered one of the caves of our sect. If these people found the traces left behind by the thieving heaven Laozu and sneaked into our cave again, what should we do? Don't worry, that year, the thieving heaven Laozu only entered the longevity cave after breaking through our sect's protective formation. Our sect has already learned its lesson, and not only did we strengthen the protective formation, every 50 years, the protective formation will be activated again and become unrecognizable. If we want to break through the formation, we will have to start all over again. Wei Zhen said solemnly. But then again, recently, the whereabouts of the Laozu in our sect seem to be a little uncertain. Could it be that something big is going to happen? Chang Sankai spat out the wooden stick in his mouth and asked Wei Zhen, boss, you should know something here, right? Wei Zhen chuckled and said, other than Mara, what else could it be? Previously, the magic cloud city outside the Endless Mountains was destroyed by the Peacock royalty and Mara's army. Then, it was occupied by the demon clan of the Endless Mountains. How could the Lingyun Valley suffer such a big loss? Both sides fought openly and secretly for the magic cloud city, but unexpectedly, Mara's army took advantage of it. It was said that in a battle, both the human and demon clans lost more than 10 Dharma adepts under the siege of Mara, including 2 late Dharma adepts. In order to annihilate this Mara army, both sides had to temporarily put aside the fight for Magic Cloud City. The 6-winged Golden Cicada clan and Skyward Pavilion of the Endless Mountains joined forces with the other factions and finally defeated this Mara army. At the same time, both sides paid a huge price. After this battle, the calamity of Mara had gradually begun to spread deep into the heart of Middle-earth. The 9 Xian Tower could be said to be ready for battle. The great adepts in the sect were constantly sent out to patrol the territories controlled by the 9 Xian Tower, And at the same time, they gathered all the factions around the Ninexian Tower to prepare for the upcoming calamity of Mara. How could they have the energy to put so much attention on the thieving heaven's inheritance? Furthermore, the first, second, third, and fifth ranked direct disciples of the Ninexian Tower were currently gathered at Ninexian Mountain. If they still could not take down the thieving heaven's inheritance, the Ninexian Tower would have nothing else to say. Stealing the sky and switching the sun. Could this be what it means to steal the sky and switch the sun? Although the entrance to this treasure trove is within the Ninexian Mountain, the truth is that the treasure itself is attached to the Ninexian Mountain's sec-protecting formation. No matter how the formation operates, the treasure will not leave the formation. Hence, we will always be able to find the longevity paradise in this treasure trove. Thieving Heaven Laozu truly lives up to his reputation as an extraordinary person. The Ninexian Tower naturally has no lack of formation masters, but they never discovered that the sec-protecting formation has already been tampered with. This is truly a marvelous skill, worthy of the name Thieving Heaven. Lu Ping and Qing, who discussed the stealing the sun and stealing art on the beast skin scroll, while corroborating with the Thieving Heaven's inheritance. From time to time, they would click their tongues in wonder, and the true inheritor of this divine ability was currently opening a cave on a wall that had been opened, and this cave was a branch of a large spirit stone vein. Although the Ninexian Tower would change the operation method of their sec-protecting formation every 50 years, they never thought that the Thieving Heaven's inheritance would be attached to the sec-protecting formation in an unimaginable way, and always be connected to the Longevity Grotto Heaven. And the most recent operation of the formation had placed the Longevity Grotto Heaven and a large spirit stone vein together. And Lu Ping and the rest who were about to leave were once again stopped by Debao. He wanted to steal the spirit stones in this spirit stone vein. Of course, he only had his eyes on top-grade spirit stones. As long as the Ninexian Tower could not find this place, Lu Ping was naturally not in a hurry. Furthermore, stealing the spirit stone vein had become a technical job in Debao's eyes. How could the Ninexian Tower not discover that this spirit stone vein had never been stolen before? Stealing the sun and stealing art. This was the opportunity for Debao to immediately start practicing this divine ability. Chapter 1207. How could he not leave any traces when he stole the spirit stone vein? It seemed that the sky-stealing sun-shifting art was the key to solving this problem. However, Debao, who had just obtained this technique, did not seem to have the time to cultivate it. However, Lu Ping, Green Fox, and the others soon realized that they had underestimated Debao's talent in this aspect. Although the sky-stealing sun-shifting art was a supreme divine power, Debao seemed to be naturally familiar with this divine power. Even though he could not master even one of the basic divine powers in a short span of 10 days, the talent and achievements he had displayed in this aspect still left Lu Ping and the others dumbfounded. Debao himself seemed to be extremely interested in this divine power, which formed a stark contrast to his usual laziness in cultivation. In more than 10 days, Debao had mined most of the top-grade spirit stones in this branch vein. After another 10 days, Debao began to remove the traces in the vein and backfill the robber's hole bit by bit. He also used a divine power that he had yet to master to disguise the robber's hole as a barren spirit vein. There are still many flaws in this method. If a mind seeker sees this, he will definitely notice that someone has touched the spirit vein here. If I can master the sky-stealing sun-shifting art, I can even change the location of the other spirit stones in the surroundings, making the distribution of spirit stones on the entire vein more reasonable. Even an ordinary mind seeker will not be able to detect it inadvertently. Debao regretfully filled up the spirit vein tunnel, then restored the stone wall to its original state. Only then did he say, "Let's hope that the prospectors of the 9 mystical tower won't check this vein." As the saying went, the expert knows the ropes, while the layman enjoys the show. Debao clapped his hands and stood up. Only then did he see that everyone, including Lu Ping and the others, were dumbfounded. Lu Ping was slightly puzzled. "That's it. It's a complete spirit vein. Can a mind seeker tell?" It would have been better if he didn't say this, but as soon as he said this, Debao's tail instantly rose to the sky, and he said, "What do you know? If I was given a period of time to cultivate that stealing a beam and replacing a pillar divine ability, once I achieve initial success, then a half-baked or finder like Xianwei would absolutely not be able to see through it." Everyone nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Amazing, amazing! Debao was even more pleased with himself. However, Debao's complacency only lasted for a moment. He saw Lu Ping divide up the small pile of top-grade spirit stones in the middle of the relic and said, Qing Hu, Qing Lang and Qing Hu will take 50. Qing Hu and Qing Lang will take 30. And the rest who have reached the late core forging stage will get 10. As for the rest, they were all kept by Lu Ping with a wave of his sleeves. Debao suddenly became anxious and said, Mine. You guys can't bully me like this. These spirit stones were dug out by me. Lu Ping glared at him and said, You're just a 4th stage core forging stage minor repairs. Do you think you can use the top-grade spirit stones? If you want the top-grade spirit stones, sure. But you'll have to increase your level to the late core forging stage first. Debao's love for spirit stones was not because he was dissatisfied with Lu Ping's distribution. In fact, the number of top-grade spirit stones that Debao had collected might not be less than that of Qing Hu and Qing Lang. It was just that Debao's love for spirit stones was limitless, even if it was just a low-grade spirit stone. Perhaps this was a special characteristic of the spirit-seeking mice. The spirit stone vein that Debao had excavated was only a branch of a large vein. It could not be compared to the top-grade spirit stones that Lu Ping had stolen from Yuanling Island. At that time, Lu Ping had stolen from the main vein, and the ratio of top-grade spirit stones was much higher than this branch vein. However, the number of top-grade spirit stones he had collected was still a huge amount. After finishing the exploration of the Thieving Heavens relic, Qing Hu asked worriedly, How do you plan to leave this place? The last time they had entered the relic, it was because Qing Hu and Lu Ping had continuously attracted the attention of the entire Jiushuan Tower. That was how Debao had managed to enter the relic and use the divine space essence to successfully transport everyone here. However, it was actually easy to leave now. All he had to do was use the divine space essence. However, this way, he would not be able to retrieve the divine space essence. Once the Jiushuan Tower found the location of the divine space essence, the divine space essence would definitely be exposed. Once the divine space essence was exposed, the consequences would undoubtedly be disastrous for Lu Ping. The theft of the Yuanling Island's spirit stone vein, the death of the Yuan clan's formation grandmaster, Mr. 1, the huge astronomical phenomenon in the sky above the divine space array, the resonance caused by the heaven creation relic, the death of the Yulin sect's great cultivator. All these mysteries would be revealed one by one. Thus, no matter what, Lu Ping would not take the risk of leaving this divine space essence here. After you leave the Jiushuan Tower's territory, head north and return to the Yingtian courtyard. It just so happens that Zilan's cultivation is at a crucial point in her breakthrough, so I will have to stay here for a while. Furthermore, without you by my side, it will be easier for me to break out of the encirclement. Qing Hu knew that what Lu Ping said was easier, but in reality, if they stayed together, they would become a burden to Lu Ping. Even Qing Hu herself could not say that she would be of any help in the battle against the Jiushuan Tower's heirs. Although Qing Hu currently had the heaven-stealing divine axe, a spirit treasure that was far more powerful than her natal spirit treasure, the Xianhua Great Axe, which had reached the peak of spirit cultivation, the heaven-stealing divine axe's characteristics did not lie in its swift and fierce attacks. This did not match the characteristics of Qing Hu's own cultivation. In her hands, the heaven-stealing divine axe could at most be considered a temporary spirit treasure. However, the reason why Lu Ping was willing to stay in the Thieving Heaven inheritance for a while was not only because of the large spirit stone vein, but also because the purple crystal queen bee was at a critical point in her cultivation. Who had ever seen a purple crystal queen bee at the mid-core forging stage? At the very least, Lu Ping had never heard of it. In fact, after coming out of the Longevity Grotto Heaven, the purple crystal queen bee asked Lu Ping for a low-grade earth spirit object, then went into seclusion to brew royal jelly. Although the purple crystal queen bee had a bountiful harvest in the longevity grotto heaven, with the purple crystal queen bee's advancement, Lu Ping was destined to be disappointed. Most of the purple crystal queen bee's royal jelly was used by the queen bee to increase her cultivation. Half a month's time was not enough to support the purple crystal queen bee's advancement, and it was not enough to support her through the most difficult period. However, the thieving heaven inheritance, which was drawn from the Jiushuan Tower, was enough to support the purple crystal queen bee through the most difficult period of cultivation. Qing Hu and the others left the thieving heaven inheritance, one by one with the help of the spatial spirit. At this time, Lu Ping also let go of his hands and feet, and prepared to do some meticulous preparations. After overcoming the first lightning tribulation, Lu Ping's physical body had once again improved significantly. However, it was now only as strong as a spiritual magic treasure. Although such a body was strong enough for cultivators of the same level, and was comparable to cultivators who had overcome the second lightning tribulation, Lu Ping naturally would not give up on the opportunity to further strengthen his physical body. However, whether it was the 7-aperture pear or the immortal root, the best way to use them was not for Dharma adepts like Lu Ping. Other than strengthening a cultivator's physical body, the 7-aperture pear and the immortal root also had another important function, which was to significantly increase a cultivator's potential. From this point of view, the value of the 7-aperture pear and the immortal root was slightly higher than that of the ashenwood pure jade fruit. However, there was another point to consider. In order to fully utilize the effect of increasing one's potential, the cultivator had to be a blood-refining minor repairs cultivator who had yet to enter the blood condensation stage. It would not work if the cultivator was old or had a high level of cultivation. Furthermore, once the cultivator had reached the Dharma stage, who would care about increasing one's potential? To be able to obtain such a treasure, other than those with heaven-defying luck, like the blood-refining minor repairs, which cultivator was not a Dharma adept with a high level of cultivation. As the saying went, treasures could only be found by luck, not by searching for them. In fact, it also required one's ability as a foundation. And for the Dharma adepts who obtained such a treasure, unless it was for a close family member, who would be willing to leave such a treasure for the blood-refining minor repairs, to improve their potential, rather than use it themselves, to increase the strength of their physical body. This was actually something that could not be helped. Rare treasures were already rare, and Dharma adepts often faced life and death situations with every step they took. In order to increase the strength of their physical body, they would not hesitate to give up, or even waste the other effects of the spirit fruit. However, after thinking for a long time, Lu Ping decided to use the 7-aperture pear first. This was because this 7-aperture pear was ripe enough, and there might be some seeds left in the core. And in fact, Lu Ping's guess was not wrong. Within this 7-aperture pear, there were indeed 2 dark green seeds. After being carefully taken out by Lu Ping, he handed them over to Lu Taohua. Cultivating spirit herbs, spirit fruits, and spirit trees was not only something that the Woodluan race was good at. Lu Taohua, who was born from the spirit demon race, also had a natural advantage in this aspect. Although Lu Ping had another refined Dharma alchemy furnace in his hands, Lu Ping was, after all, not familiar with the heaven-stealing furnace. Furthermore, the Nachuan cauldron had already condensed 2 treasures, and had been nurtured by Lu Ping's inner yuan for more than 100 years. He was already very familiar with it. However, with a treasure-level alchemy furnace as a backup, for an alchemy grandmaster like Lu Ping, he could use it to try out a new method of alchemy, and that was the continuous alchemy furnace division secret technique. In short, in the process of alchemy, the Nachuan cauldron would be the main, and the heaven-stealing furnace would be the auxiliary. The 2 alchemy furnaces would cooperate with each other, and the heaven-stealing furnace would share the difficulty of alchemy with the Nachuan cauldron. In the end, it would achieve a method to increase the efficiency of alchemy and the success rate of alchemy. And this method was a secret alchemy technique that only alchemy grandmasters could come into contact with. For alchemy, it was undoubtedly a serious challenge that had to be faced. At the same time, it was also against the fact that the rare herbs used to refine Dharma-level elixirs were extremely rare. Moreover, the efficiency of alchemy was low, and the success rate of alchemy was low. Chapter 1208. For alchemy grandmasters, the continuous furnace separation was a secret alchemy technique that they had to challenge. The main reason for this was that almost all of the spirit herbs needed to refine Dharma stage elixirs could be regarded as natural treasures, especially for some of the spirit herbs needed for elixirs with special effects. However, unlike the elixirs before the core forging stage, which had a fixed number of 10 elixirs in each furnace, a large portion of Dharma stage elixirs were not like this. After being successfully refined with a 100% success rate, only 3 or 5 elixirs could be refined out of the furnace. Some of the more precious elixirs could only be refined out of the furnace. Elixirs that could be used to enhance the strength of the physical body were often extremely precious and difficult to refine. The Ashwood Pure Jade fruit had only been refined by Lu Ping, and he had used the spirit water nourishing elixir cultivation technique. The reason why Lu Ping was able to concoct 3 spirit water body nourishing pellets from the blood skeleton flower was because the blood skeleton flower was mature enough, and its medicinal effects were beyond Lu Ping's expectations. The 7-orifice pair in Lu Ping's hand wasn't enough to concoct more than 2 spirit water body nourishing pellets in one go, but if he used the continuous cauldron pellet separation, he might be able to concoct one more. There were naturally many things to pay attention to when using continuous furnace separation. At least the quality of the supporting elixirs could not be too different from the main alchemy furnace. Otherwise, the quality of the elixir would also be weakened. As for the spirit fire needed for alchemy, under the Nachuan cauldron was naturally the silver spirit fire, and the spirit fire under the heaven-stealing cauldron was a little unique. It was a 6-inch high-grade earth-level spirit fire. It was a strange spirit fire that Lu Ping had found in the North Sea volcanoes. At that time, it was only 4 inches long, and it was called the 4-inch spirit fire. Now, after a period of growth, the 4-inch spirit fire had devoured a mid-grade and high-grade earth-level spirit fire in Lu Ping's hands, and had successfully advanced to become a 6-inch spirit fire. This method of growing by devouring other spirit fires was also an extremely rare type of spirit fire of heaven and earth, and it had a very deep understanding of alchemy. However, this type of flame had an extremely unique property. Every time the spiritual flame was upgraded, it could only be used to refine spirit pills that corresponded to the level of the spiritual flame. At this moment, the spiritual flame was 6 inches long and could only be used to refine late core forging spirit pills. If it wanted to refine early Dharma spirit pills, it would be impossible, unless the 6-inch flame could be upgraded to a 7-inch flame that could be used to refine Dharma spirit pills. At this time, there was a flash of fire in Lu Ping's hand, and a spirit fire started burning in his palm. It was indeed a low-grade heaven-level spirit fire. However, this spirit fire was not very suitable for refining elixirs, and it was also slightly violent in the forging of weapons. It could only be used to refine spiritual items. And at the moment when this spirit fire appeared in Lu Ping's hand, the 6-inch spirit fire that was floating in midair suddenly jumped into Lu Ping's palm like a cat that had smelled fish. With a series of crackling sounds, the 2 sparks actually merged together. More accurately, the low-grade heaven-level spirit fire was actually slowly being devoured by the 6-inch spirit fire. The 6-inch spirit fire itself did not change much, but the line of fire gradually grew from its original 6-inch length to 7 inches. It's done! Lu Ping's heart leaped with joy. The 7-inch spirit flame was now a genuine low-grade heaven-level spirit fire. Moreover, in terms of refining early Dharma realm medicinal pellets, even the silver spirit flame could not compare to it. Although this kind of spirit fire could become the best spirit fire for refining elixirs at any stage of cultivation, it was a pity that this kind of spirit fire could only forever be used to refine elixirs of a certain stage. The true test of a cultivator's alchemy skills was whether or not he could split his attention to take care of the situation in the other alchemy furnace during the process of refining elixirs. This was a test of the cultivator's inner yuan, divine will, alchemy skills, and willpower. Fortunately, Lu Ping had long been prepared for this. Although the process of refining the 7 orifices elixir was a kind of torture, Lu Ping still managed to persevere and successfully split the elixirs between the alchemy furnaces during the solidification stage. Furthermore, it did not cause any damage to the solidification of the 7 orifices elixir in the main alchemy furnace. Finally, the 2 alchemy furnace treasures opened at the same time, and 2 elixirs, one big and one small, flew out of the alchemy furnace and were collected by Lu Ping, who had long been prepared. The 7 orifices elixir was originally considered a mid-dharma stage elixir, but after using the alchemy technique, the 7 orifices elixir in the main alchemy furnace was still at the mid-dharma stage, while the smaller 7 orifices elixir in the auxiliary alchemy furnace could only be considered an early dharma stage elixir. Fortunately, although Lu Ping's cultivation level was at the mid-dharma stage, early dharma stage elixirs were only slightly less effective for him, but they were not completely useless. The 2 7 orifices elixirs were refined by Lu Ping in succession, and it took him another 10 days or so. Lu Ping could clearly feel that his physical body had been strengthened. Although it was not enough to break through the shackles of the spirit cultivation stage, it was much closer, at least in front of a great practitioner who had passed the second thunder trial. The strength of Lu Ping's physical body was nothing to be afraid of. From the time that the 7 orifices elixir was refined to the time that Lu Ping had completely refined it, another month had passed. By now, Qing Hu and the others must have already left the 9 Xian Towers territory and were heading north. Furthermore, with the 9 Xian Towers methods, they must have already found out where Qing Hu and the others were. Lu Ping just did not know if the 9 Xian Towers practitioners would have the patience to wait in the 9 Xian mountain after such a long wait. Lu Ping waved his hand, and a space door opened. The purple crystal bee king, which had grown to a size of 2 feet after advancing to the mid-core forging stage, flapped its wings and flew out of the house of gold. Big brother, I've advanced to the mid-core forging stage. The purple crystal bee queen's face was filled with joy, and Lu Ping's face was also full of smiles. Not bad. In the cultivation world, there had never been a purple crystal bee king in the core forging stage, let alone a queen bee that had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. When Zilan advanced to the core forging stage, she was able to brew royal jelly of higher quality. Now that she had advanced to the mid-core forging stage, Lu Ping wondered if she had gained some other abilities. Big brother, look. A small jade bottle was handed to Lu Ping. Inside the bottle was the royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal bee queen, which had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. Although Zilan had used most of the royal jelly brewed from the honey in the spiritual herb garden in the longevity grotto heaven to increase her cultivation, it was not easy for her to keep this much. Under the purple crystal queen's hopeful gaze, Lu Ping opened the jade bottle. The essence of 100 flowers, which was purer than the royal jelly from before, spread out from the jade bottle. Lu Ping's expression gradually changed from intoxication to surprise, and finally, a trace of shock. After Lu Ping quickly put away the jade bottle, he stuck his spirit sealing talisman on it. Then he asked excitedly, "Did you brew this after advancing to the mid-core forging stage?" The purple crystal queen was a little nervous when she saw the constant changes in Lu Ping's expression. At this moment, when she saw Lu Ping's irrepressible joy, the purple crystal queen smiled proudly and said, "Of course." However, as if she suddenly thought of something, the purple crystal queen was a little discouraged. It's just that after Zilan advanced to the mid-core forging stage, the amount of royal jelly that she can brew has been greatly reduced. Previously, she could extract 1 bottle out of 10 bottles of purple crystal honey. Although the quality of the royal jelly has increased, she may not be able to extract 1 bottle out of 20 bottles. At this time, Lu Ping had already calmed down. He nodded and said, "If such a heaven-defying treasure could be produced in large quantities, that would be a real problem." In this small bottle of royal jelly, Lu Ping not only detected the pure and thick taste of the purple crystal bee's essence of 100 flowers, but it also had a greater auxiliary and enhancement effect than the previous royal jelly. However, all of this paled in comparison to the new thing that appeared in the royal jelly. Lu Ping felt the power of vitality in the royal jelly brewed by the purple crystal queen bee, which had advanced to the mid-core forging stage. After the purple crystal queen bee advanced to the mid-core forging stage, it condensed the essence of 100 flowers to refine the purple crystal royal jelly. It actually melted the vitality of the 100 flowers into it, causing the purple crystal royal jelly to suddenly become a treasure comparable to a longevity pill. It could be used to directly increase a cultivator's lifespan. With Lu Ping's current knowledge as an alchemy grandmaster, he was 80 to 90% sure that he could use the purple crystal royal jelly as the base and combine it with some other spirit herbs to refine a new kind of longevity pill. In terms of the concentration of vitality contained in the purple crystal royal jelly, this kind of longevity pill with the purple crystal royal jelly as the base might not be able to increase one's lifespan as much as the myriad wonder jade nectar. However, with the purple crystal queen bee, Lu Ping could continuously obtain the royal jelly. In other words, once Lu Ping was able to concoct this kind of longevity pill, it would be an endless supply. In fact, the myriad wonder jade nectar could be produced continuously in the myriad poison nectar, or the myriad poison source liquid. However, there was a harsh condition, and that was that Lu Ping had to constantly search for highly poisonous places, so that the myriad poison nectar could absorb the poison and condense a drop of the myriad wonder jade nectar. Not only was this process dangerous for Lu Ping, but Lu Ping also did not have the time to search for highly poisonous places all over the world, just for a few drops of the myriad wonder jade nectar. Moreover, the speed at which the myriad wonder jade nectar was condensing was extremely slow, and it was also extremely small. It was not as satisfying as the purple crystal royal jelly. Outside of the Ninexian mountain, the master of the Yin and Yang building could no longer remain calm. He spoke to Wei Zhen, who was beside him. "Boss Wei, waiting like this is not a solution. Who knows whether Lu Tianping will come or not? We have already received news that the Cyan Fox 9 bandits have appeared near the Yulon River and are heading north." Wei Zhen did not pay attention to the master of the Yin and Yang building. Instead, he reached out his hand and waved in midair. A sound-transmitting talisman appeared out of nowhere in his palm. Wei Zhen chuckled and said, "Second brother, the sect has already ordered that all disciples are not allowed to leave the sect's territory. Even if you want to chase after them, I'm afraid you can't go against the sect's orders, right?" At this moment, not only the master of the Yin and Yang building, but even Chang Sankai and the master of the Five Elements Pavilion had solemn expressions on their faces. They no longer cared about the fleeing Cyan Fox 9 bandits. They asked in a serious voice, "Something big is going to happen to the sect. Boss Wei, do you know what it is?" Chapter 1209. The Nine Mystical Tower had ordered all of its disciples to stay out of its territory. The Yin-Yang Tower Master and the others immediately frowned and asked, "Boss Wei, did the sect send out something big?" Wei Zhen nodded his head and said, "It's said that during this period of time, the demonic Luo army has emerged from all over the Central Plains, causing the entire Central Plains to be in a state of panic. Recently, more and more demonic Luos have appeared within the Nine Mystical Houses' sphere of influence. The various patrol teams are simply unable to kill them all. Furthermore, there's already news that they've encountered at least 2 Azuras in the process of exterminating the demonic Luos. Furthermore, the demonic Luos within our sect's sphere of influence have begun to gather." What? It was not only the 2 Rites Pavilion Master, even the carefree Chang Sankai was startled when he heard this. He said, "The evil Luo sect has gathered on a large scale. What do they intend to do? Could it be that they intend to besiege
perhaps
the
the
Nine
person
Profound
who entered the
Pavilion?"
thieving heaven
Wei Zhen
inheritance
shook his head and
has
said,
already secretly
"It's hard to
left.
say.
Impossible.
It's not like Mara's
The master
army
of 5
has never
elements
gathered to
pavilion was
attack
very
a sacred
confident
land
in his
in the
trap and
history of
said,
the cultivation
as
world.
long as the people
There's
who
no
entered the
guarantee
thieving heaven
that they're not
inheritance
targeting
are
our
still
Nine
in the
Mystical
Nine
Tower.
Mountain.
The
There is
Yin-Yang
no
Tower
way they
Master
won't be
trembled
discovered
and
by
said,
me.
"Even
I can
if they're
even borrow
targeting
the
us,
power of the
we'll
sect's
just make sure
protective
they don't
formation
return
to monitor
No
the
one said
entire
anything.
Nine Xian
They
Mountain.
knew that the
They
Yin-Yang
won't be
Tower
able to
Master was
escape.
right.
They
And the
all
Nine
looked
Mystical
surprised.
Tower naturally
They didn't
had the
expect the
confidence
master
to do
of the
so.
5 Elements
However,
Tower
to
to
have
Mara's
reached
army
such a
really
level of
did gathered
attainment
to
to
attack
attack
the
the
Nine
Nine
Mystical
Mystical Tower,
He was able to use
then
the
it wouldn't be a
sect-protecting
battle that would
formation
end
for
in a
his
short
own
period
use.
of time.
And they didn't
How
even
could there be
realize
no
it.
deaths in a battle?
Just when everyone was
There's
thinking
another
about
piece
their
of
own
news.
matters,
Wei
the
Zhen's
master of
expression
5
was somewhat
Elements
solemn.
Pavilion's expression
Someone has
suddenly
discovered the
changed.
tracks of
He
Qing
said,
Hu and the others.
"Oh no,
Someone
they're already
suddenly
near
appeared
the
in the
Yulin
River,
River,
Mountain,
and they're still
everyone
heading
was
north."
shocked.
Everyone
Wei
looked
Zhen
at
opened
each
his
other,
mouth and asked,
and in
"Where?"
the end,
The
the
master
Yin-Yang
of 5
Tower
Elements
Master
said in
Pavilion
disbelief,
pointed with his finger
"That
and
can't
said,
be.
They still have
Northwest,
companions
he is currently
trapped in the
escaping
thieving
towards
heavens
that direction."
inheritance.
Wei Zhen
At
shouted.
this time,
Fifth
Chang
brother
Sankai
stopped him.
interrupted and
"The
asked,
rest of you,
"Is
follow
there
me."
any news of Lu
At the bottom
Tianping?
of the tunnel of
A
the
look of
thieving heaven
approval
appeared on Wei
inheritance.
Zhen's face.
Lu Ping was
He
holding
said,
the key that
"That's the
Debao
strange
used to
part.
enter the
The
inheritance.
news didn't mention
It was
Lu
an axe that
Tianping,
was less than a
which
foot
means
long.
that he isn't
It
with
looked
Qing
almost
Hu
the
and the
same
others.
as the thieving heaven
That's
divine
strange.
axe.
Could
But
it
it was
be that
only
Lu
a high-grade
Tianping
magic
wants
tool.
to charge into the
But at
trap
this
we set
time,
up himself?
Lu Ping was
The
carefully
5
playing
Element
with the
Pavilion
axe in his
Master
hand.
asked curiously.
He smiled
He
lightly
knew
and
how much
said,
effort
"This
had
is
been
a bit
put into the
interesting.
Nine Mysterious
I didn't
Mountain
notice it
recently.
before.
Wouldn't it be
Be
too
too
much
much
of
of
a
a palm
pity
against the
if it were
stone
to be
wall at
wasted
the
like
side of the
this?"
tunnel?"
The
And
Yin
a
and Yang
series of
brothel
runes
master curled
immediately
his lips
appeared on
and
the
said,
stone wall.
"Perhaps
At the
Lu
same
Tianping
time,
is no
a
longer in
simple
the vicinity,
teleportation
and
formation
his
gradually
companions
took
have already
shape.
left.
And in the
How can
center
he
of
be
the
our match
formation,
by himself?"
a small stone that was originally crystal clear suddenly became incomparably resplendent. Lu Ping didn't activate the teleportation array. Instead, he reached out and plucked the small stone from the center of the teleportation array. The glowing stone immediately turned back into a crystal clear void spirit, and the simple teleportation array began to crumble. Countless runes wandered on the stone wall and returned to their original positions. And at this time, Lu Ping slammed his palm on the stone wall. A bluish-purple light immediately entered the stone wall. With a loud boom, the giant stone in the valley outside the inheritance suddenly split open. A door opened and Lu Ping calmly walked out. The giant stone closed. Lu Ping looked around. Then, light flashed under his feet, and he immediately flew towards the northwest direction. Not long after Lu Ping flew out, the Master of 5 Elements Pavilion immediately discovered Lu Ping. At this time, Lu Ping was slightly startled and said, "What a brilliant formation!" Even if Lu Tianping could break the array formation, so what? Bao Wuxing was the 5th heir of the 9 Mystical Tower. He did not rely solely on his attainments in array formations to secure his position as the 5th heir of the 9 Mystical Tower. However, Bao Wuxing's expression changed immediately. A 4-colored light suddenly appeared on Lu Ping's body, and Lu Ping crashed directly into the array formation that Bao Wuxing had set up. 4-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Amidst Bao Wuxing's exclamation, the protective shield of the array formation was torn apart like a thin piece of paper. Bao Wuxing, who had rushed up in a hurry, was unable to contend with the oncoming Lu Ping due to his lack of preparation. He was pushed back dozens of feet by Lu Ping's sword, making way for Lu Ping to escape. At this moment, the 2 Elements Pavilion Master and the 3 Elements Pavilion Master did not expect that Lu Ping would be able to break the array formation that the 5 Element Pavilion Master had set up so easily. The 2 of them had not yet recovered from the previous 2 sword attacks from Lu Ping. They could only watch helplessly as Lu Ping broke through their encirclement and swaggered away. Lu Tianping, eat my attack. It was Wei Zhen, the first heir of the 9 Mysteries Pavilion, who had a well-deserved reputation. Although he had suffered a loss in the Divine Thoughts attack, he was the first to be pushed back by Lu Ping. Now, he was the first to recover, and closely followed behind Lu Ping. However, if Lu Ping insisted on escaping, there was nothing he could do. He could only attack with all his strength in an attempt to injure Lu Ping. Wei Zhen was holding a black stone ball in his hand. He suddenly threw it up, and the black stone ball suddenly expanded in midair. Like a falling meteor, it smashed towards Lu Ping's head. In an instant, Lu Ping's figure was shrouded by the shadow of the huge stone. Lu Ping had already sensed that although the shadow could not confine Lu Ping's figure, it seemed to be guiding the huge stone in midair to smash towards Lu Ping. This black stone ball was actually a spiritual treasure, a second tribulation spiritual treasure. Lu Ping abruptly turned around in midair, but his body was still flying backward. The thin water flow sword swirled in the air and spiraled around each other. A monstrous sword wave swept up from the bottom to the top, sweeping towards the falling Hei Shimaru. Great River Flow's East Sword Technique. This time, he did not use the sword technique that Lu Ping had created himself. Instead, he used the fundamental great technique of the Sea of Hundred Rivers sword technique, which was the great sword technique that Lu Ping had learned from the North Sea wave listening technique. A monstrous wave rose into the sky, causing the huge black stone to sway in midair. However, it could not stop the huge stone from falling. At this time, Mara's army was also heading south, and it seemed like their destination was very clear. If he continued to head south, he might attract the attention of some powerful existence in Mara's army. If he was killed, there would be no way for him to explain himself. Lu Ping could only head west in an attempt to shake off the pursuit of Mara's army. He hoped that this time, Mara's army had gathered here with a purpose. If that was the case, there was a chance that he would not attract the attention of Jade Mara, who was at the same level as him, or even someone with a higher cultivation. Lu Ping followed the Qingming River for a few dozen kilometers in a single breath. The number of Mara's army on the river's surface gradually decreased, but Lu Ping did not relax at all. Instead, his expression became more and more solemn. At this time, within the range of Lu Ping's divine sense, he could clearly sense that about 30 to 40 kilometers south of the Qingming River, a large number of Mara's auras had appeared. Moreover, there was no lack of existences of the same level as Mara. Furthermore, further away, the auras of Mara's divine sense were even more rampant and tyrannical. However, there was a limit to the range of Lu Ping's divine sense. Even if he could sense it further away, it was still extremely vague. The northern Mara's army had crossed the river in large numbers, while the western Mara's army was heading east in large numbers. The intention of the Mara's army was already very clear. They were heading towards the 9 Profound Tower. Furthermore, if Lu Ping was not wrong, there were currently 2 groups of Mara's armies, one from the east and one from the south, working together with the other 2 groups to surround the 9 Profound Tower. This Mara's army was really going all out. Lu Ping's luck was evidently pretty good. Currently, he had been fleeing in the northwest direction for his life. Instead, he had fled all the way to the point where the northern Mara's army and the western Mara's army met. Without a doubt, this was because the 2 groups of Mara's army had suffered too much damage. Charge out, I must charge out. As the 4 sides of the Mara's army closed in, this area would gradually shrink and disappear. When that happened, Lu Ping would probably be trapped. Lu Ping had no time to worry about his internal injuries. The thin stream sword was like 2 green dragons that dove into the Qingming River. It alerted the Mara's army that was patrolling the river, and 2 jade shura came for Lu Ping. At this time, the Qingming River that Lu Ping was in was already upstream, and the river was getting more and more turbulent. But at this time, the entire Qingming River suddenly started to boil. As the two Jade Shura came for him in fear, the Qingming River under their feet suddenly rose by 3 feet. The entire Qingming River started to flow backwards. The Qingming River, that the two sides of the Mara's army were combining to strengthen the two sides of the Mara's army. They did not expect Lu Ping to be able to use his own power to move the entire Qingming River. They were all shocked, and they all fell back. The entire formation of the Mara's army was suddenly thrown into chaos. At this time, 2 green sword dragons emerged from the river, carrying the power of the Qingming River flowing backwards. They were coming for the 2 Jade Shura that were trying to kill Lu Ping. Before the 2 sword dragons even got close, their fierce power was already coming for the 2 Jade Shura. The 2 Jade Shura were scared before they could even fight. But how could Lu Ping's trump card be so simple? A giant praying mantis suddenly appeared above Lu Ping's head. Its 2 blades crisscrossed and slashed down like a pair of scissors. The 2 blades had already broken through the restrictions of space and were aimed at the 2 Jade Shuras. At the same time, the Water Ghost sword flashed a blue light in the air, and it appeared in the midst of the Mara's army, which had been thrown into chaos by Lu Ping. Every time the blue light flashed, a Mara would die. A rat jumped onto Lu Ping's left shoulder. Its long tail coiled around a small copper hammer and swung it upwards. The copper bell that appeared above his head suddenly rang loudly, and the already disorderly battle formation was now in chaos. A few Blood Mara wanted to come out and clean up the Mara army, but a loud voice shouted, "Kill them!" Lu Xiaoping took the lead. After Lu Ping had reached the mid-Dharma level, Lu Xiaoping's power had increased a lot, even though his training had not increased. At least this sudden attack was enough to put a few Blood Mara in a difficult position. A jade demon had appeared behind the Mara army, and it suddenly spat in Lu Ping's direction. Lu Ping suddenly felt as if his will had been pierced by something like a nail. Lu Ping didn't mind it at all. His jade phosphorus soul fire flickered, and the soul-devouring nail was instantly refined. The jade demon screamed in pain and saw a golden pung swooping down from the sky, its claws reaching for the jade demon's head. The jade demon hurriedly retreated and saw the golden pung suddenly explode in mid-air. It turned into a sky full of auspicious clouds that shrouded the entire sky. The jade demon wanted to use its divine art to counterattack, but it was suddenly blocked by the auspicious clouds in the sky. Its soul-devouring divine art was weakened by half every time it used it. Chapter 12:12. Mara's army was going to surround the 9 profound tower. Lu Ping had no time to be shocked. He had to escape from the encirclement first. The cloud sail had weakened the jade demon's harassment and sneak attacks. Samling, Lu Qiner, Lu Xiaohai, and the others no longer had any scruples. They joined forces and attacked. The surface of the Qingming River had already been turned upside down by the 2 sword dragons formed by Lu Ping's thin water flow sword. The 3 Jade Mara were also being pinned down by Lu Ping. Lu Ping saw that the time was ripe. He had single-handedly thrown the Mara's army that was gathering on the Qingming River into chaos. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ping laughed bitterly to himself. No matter how vigorous his true essence was, he wouldn't be able to sustain such an intense consumption of true essence when he was seriously injured. This time, his injuries were even more serious. But if he couldn't break out of the encirclement now, once the Mara's army came from 2 directions to reinforce him, not only would Lu Ping have no chance to escape, but he would also die. Lu Ping held his hands in the air, and an extremely dense purplish-blue light began to condense. 12 5-colored stars flashed in the middle of the purplish-blue light. Then, Lu Ping abruptly pressed the light down into the river beneath his feet. 12 5-colored pillars of light shot into the sky from the Qingming River, and 12 huge waves rolled up from different directions. Everything within a mile of Lu Ping was covered in water, and it was impossible to tell north from south. Countless Mara were suppressed and swallowed in this world of water. At the same time, under the cover of the huge waves, a blooming white jade lotus gradually appeared in the river and began to close up. The huge flower also began to gradually shrink until it disappeared. Just as the white jade lotus disappeared into the Qingming River, The 12 beams of colorful light that shot into the sky suddenly disappeared. The various spiritual treasures, and the numerous cultivators who had been wreaking havoc in the group of Luo, also disappeared abruptly. The boiling river gradually calmed down, but the surviving Luo still had not recovered from the earth-shattering scene. 3 Jade Mara gathered together in a sorry state. While guarding against Lu Ping, who was hiding somewhere, they began to regroup the defeated Mara's army. At this moment, several beams of light came from the north and west. Several Jade Mara and Blood Mara came as reinforcements. There was even an Azura among the Mara that came from the north, which made all the Mara present worship. Looking at the doomsday-like scene, the Azura's furious roar made all the Mara present fall silent. They just knelt on the ground, not daring to make the slightest movement. As the Azura continued to roar, groups of Mara immediately moved. In the Qingming River, in the mountains on both sides, in the woods, and even further places, they began to search for traces of Lu Ping. The Azura also followed the groups of Mara from time to time, trying to find Lu Ping, who had just disappeared. However, no matter how hard these Mara searched, they never found any trace of Lu Ping. In such a short time, where did Lu Ping hide? At this moment, Lu Ping was hiding in the water vein of the Qingming River. Even he himself didn't know that he could break through the water vein of the Qingming River and hide in it. Just as Lu Ping used the natal gentian formation to activate this section of the Qingming River, there was a moment when Lu Ping actually discovered that as the Qingming River moved, the water vein hidden at the bottom of the Qingming River was also affected. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. The White Lotus formation caught the movement of the water vein and opened the spatial entrance to the water vein of the Qingming River. Lu Ping was overjoyed. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by the gentian formation, he instantly recalled Samling and the others. Without waiting for the Qingming River to calm down, Lu Ping and the others had already entered the water vein through the White Jade Lotus. However, Lu Ping still didn't dare to be careless. He activated the art of seed deception and worked hard to become one with the water vein. Indeed, moments later, the chaos caused by Lu Ping was discovered by Mara's armies in the north and west. When reinforcements arrived and Azura followed, everyone knew that the water vein was hidden in the Qingming River, but it was extremely rare to find someone capable of entering the water vein. Even Mara, who was thought to be an essence spirit, might not be able to discover the water vein of the Qingming River. However, the water vein was extremely fragile. If Lu Ping made any strange movements in the water vein, it could destroy the water vein's concealment. Not only could he be discovered by the Azura who was constantly monitoring the Qingming River, he could even cause damage to the water vein of the Qingming River. The two largest rivers in the Central Plains were the Nether River, while the other was the Yulan River. This was something that everyone knew. However, rivers were hard to find, and every single one of them was extremely hard to find. Even if you were able to find it immediately, it could disappear into the river at any time. In the world of cultivation, there were very few people who could capture a water vein and use it. Firstly, water veins were difficult to find. Secondly, it was difficult to keep a water vein under control. As for the two largest water veins, the Qingming River and the Yulan River, they were even more difficult to use. The only way to find these two water veins was by using the Yulan River vein that the Koi clan and Wuxia school used, and the Qingming River vein that the Nine Mysteries Tower and Skyward Pavilion used. Seeing that countless Mara were searching the Qingming River, but were unable to find Lu Ping hiding in the water vein, the Azura grew impatient. With a whistle, the numerous Mara began to regroup and head towards the Nine Mysteries Tower. Compared to the great battle they were about to face, this lucky fellow who had escaped their search was nothing. Even though Mara had left, Lu Ping, who was hiding in the water vein, was not in a hurry to come out. This was because no matter which river it was, it would always be erratic. It was not easy to find it. Moreover, Lu Ping specialized in water attribute techniques. A water vein was the condensation of the essence of a river. To Lu Ping, Any water vein was a great opportunity for him to train. The effect was no less than Lu Ping discovering a large spirit vein and enjoying the benefits of it. What's more, this was the largest water vein in the Central Plains, the Qingming River. Moreover, when Lu Ping had used the art of sea deception to merge with the water vein, he had already discovered that his injuries were healing quickly under the nourishment of the Qingming River's water vein. Originally, the injuries Lu Ping had suffered from this technique would require at least 2 to 3 years of recuperation. Now, it seemed that he would only need a year at most to completely recover from his injuries. Moreover, he was fortunate enough to be able to control the Qingming River's water vein and make use of it. No matter what, Lu Ping would not let go of this opportunity. The water vein of the Qingming River was extremely difficult to control. It was easy for Lu Ping to enter the water vein for a while, but as time passed, he would discover that the water vein was flowing away. Moreover, it was extremely difficult to find out where the flowing water vein was going. Fortunately, Lu Ping's attainments in the Tao of water were quite profound. The art of sea deception was also an extremely exquisite inheritance. After Lu Ping worked hard to merge with the water vein, he was finally able to control the Qingming River's water vein well. He had never missed the opportunity to control the Qingming River's water vein. Circulating the North Sea wave listening technique, the water essence of the Qingming River continuously surged into Lu Ping's body, healing Lu Ping's injuries and increasing his cultivation at the same time. Just as Lu Ping was hiding in the Qingming River's water vein and cultivating, the Nine Mystical Tower was facing its biggest crisis since it had established itself as one of the 5 sacred lands. Hundreds of thousands of Mara, led by nearly 30 Asuras and 5 heavenly demons, surrounded the Nine Mystical Tower from all directions. Chapter 12-13. Lu Ping had been practicing in the water vein of Qingming River for more than a year, and the injuries on his body had already recovered. However, to be able to obtain the nourishment of a water vein was an extremely rare thing. Lu Ping naturally did not want to lose such a hard-won opportunity so easily, so he put all his attention into practicing. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, an explosive sound came from the middle of the Qingming River, which had already regained its tranquility. Surging waves rose up from the bottom of the Qingming River, bringing along a cloud of dense spiritual energy. The clouds and water vapor in the surroundings quickly gathered together, forming a white mist in the sky above the Qingming River. A roar came from within the mist, and a strange blue-flecked dragon with the body of a snake, the legs of a crocodile, and the tail of a carp sprang out from the mist. It swaggered in the air, showing off its might. The strange dragon seemed very excited in the air, and the white mist spontaneously gathered around its body. Its slender body brought along the surging white mist in the air, and when it circled in the air, it would cause vibrations like water waves. From a distance, the strange dragon seemed to be directing the white mist to imitate the scene of the waves of the Qingming River under its feet. Okay, isn't it just condensing the Dharma idol one step ahead of us? Look at your proud look. A crisp voice sounded, and the tone was full of jealousy. Who else could it be but Lu Linger? Hee. The strange Jiao turned half a circle in the air, then disappeared into the white mist. After rolling for a while, Lu Hai walked out from inside and laughed complacently. Third sister, you can be jealous. Just the tone of your voice. I, your brother, am so jealous that my teeth are going to fall off. I am so angry. Look at my move, icebound 1,000 miles. A white figure suddenly appeared from the Qingming River. It was a huge white snake stirring up a big wave in the river. Before the wave fell, it turned into an ice snake in the air that was similar to the white snake, and pounced towards Lu Hai. However, Lu Hai seemed to be dismissive of Lu Linger's little tricks and said, Hey, it's useless. In front of the absolute strength of my Dharma plane cultivation, your little tricks are useless. You will only be crushed. Lu Hai pointed at the ice snake that was rushing over, and with a series of splashing sounds, the ice snake had already turned into a pool of water and fell into the Qingming River. Seeing that her sacred art had been broken so easily, Lu Linger was extremely unhappy. She shouted towards the river below her. Big sister, Lu Hai is bullying me. Lu Hai stared at him and said, Can you call me second brother? Lu Linger made a face and heard Lu Bai's gentle voice coming from the river. She sighed slightly. I can't help you. Lu Ping practiced in it for 5 years and broke through to the Dharma plane. When he broke through, it caused a lot of celestial phenomena, and Lu Ping had no time to cover it, so he was expelled by the water vein. Only Lu Dagui, the black tortoise, had been following Lu Ping to practice. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Although Dagui is usually honest, his luck is always so good. Now his cultivation has probably advanced to the late core forging realm, right? Lu Bai said softly. Practicing the water attribute martial arts, following by father's side will always be the most beneficial. Brother Dagui usually works hard without any complaints, always giving way to us when there's a problem, so it's only right that he gets some benefits. Moreover, no matter how much benefits Brother Dagui gets, can it compare to second brother condensing a form? Lu Linger was still indignant. She was not jealous, but she was the last one among the 3 siblings. She was unhappy, so naturally, she said everything without thinking. Lu Bai knew her temperament, so she continued. Compared to Sister Qin, we are considered lucky. Lu Qin's aptitude and cultivation base weren't any weaker than the 3 of them. But unfortunately, she couldn't find a wind-fire dual elemental heaven spirit. Lu Qin was also a proud and arrogant person, so she wasn't willing to condense a high-grade golden core with just a wind-fire or wind elemental heaven spirit. Hence, her cultivation base had been stuck at the bottleneck of the 9th layer core forging realm. And now, Lu Ping had given her a mission to hatch the 5 wood luan eggs in the golden house. Sure enough, upon hearing Lu Bai's words, Lu Linger's unhappy expression immediately recovered, and she said excitedly, I don't know what level father's cultivation has reached now. Will he attract the second thunder tribulation and enter the late Dharma stage in one fell swoop? Lu Bai did not say anything, but Lu Hai thought for a moment and said, No, with father's strength, even if he attracts the second thunder tribulation, it may not be able to do anything to him. However, father has always been cautious. If not for the fact that he has accumulated his strength to the limit when he was in the middle Dharma stage, he would not have summoned the second thunder tribulation. Lu Hai had now entered the Dharma stage, so he understood Lu Ping better than Lu Bai and Lu Linger. Moreover, Lu Hai had followed Lu Ping to train in the water vein for 5 years, so he could be said to be the most familiar with Lu Ping's recent situation. Lu Bai nodded and said, Father's strength has always been the best of the practitioners of the same level. Moreover, father's vision will not be limited to the late Dharma stage. Even pure young Laozu may not be in father's eyes. His goal is higher, and he will not easily summon the thunder tribulation to increase his cultivation. At this time, Lu Linger rolled her eyes at the side and said, Big sister, second brother, why don't we go somewhere else to play? It's boring to stay here all the time. Lu Bai hurriedly interrupted. Don't even think about it. We still have to wait here for father to come out of seclusion. Moreover, we are now in the central region. This is the world of the human practitioners, and it is the time of Mara's calamity. What if we are discovered? Lu Linger said. Oh, big sister, do you still think we are children under father's protection? With the cultivation of the 3 of us, how many people in the world of cultivation can do anything to us? And with the identity of the 3 of us, who would dare to provoke us? Moreover, second brother has now broken through the Dharma stage. In the world of cultivation, he is more or less a small master. We can't always live under father's wings, can we? Lu Bai did not say anything. Lu Linger turned around and said, Second brother is the most powerful. Let's go out and play. It is boring to stay here all the time. Lu Hai laughed and said, I will listen to big sister. However, there was still a look of eagerness in Lu Hai's eyes. Lu Linger rolled her eyes and said simply, You are a Dharma adept so timid. If you 2 don't go, then I will go play alone. Don't worry, I won't go far. After saying that, Lu Linger rolled in the water, and she was already a few miles away. Lu Bai had to interrupt her cultivation and float up from the river. and then she and Lu Hai chased after her. Outside the book, Lu Linger smiled at the two people who had caught up and said, "I know you two also want to go out and play, but no one dares to disobey father's words." Lu Hai smiled foolishly and said nothing. He was originally the most straightforward person, but after his advancement, he was also quite ambitious. Compared to Lu Linger, who could not bear the loneliness and wanted to play, rather than saying that he was tired of waiting, it would be better to say that he wanted to find someone to fight with and see what level his cultivation had reached. Only Lu Bai was the most steady. Seeing that she could not persuade the two people, she finally said helplessly, "Don't go far, father may come out at any time." In the Qingming River's water vein, Lu Ping, who had been in closed-door cultivation for 10 years, suddenly opened his eyes. A hint of surprise could be seen in his eyes as he said, "What a strong water vein! What's going on? Could it be that someone is after the Qingming River's water vein?" "Who is it?" A voice made the nearby cultivators of the Wuxia school feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Then, the figure of Lu Tianping was completely forced out of the water vein by the ringing of the raindrop bell in Shui Jiro's hand. Lu Tianping could actually hide in the water vein and hide so close to the place where they had set up their plan. However, he could not withstand the increasingly violent fluctuations in the water vein and was discovered by her. How did he do it? With a trace of doubt, Shui Jiro took the initiative to attack Lu Tianping. For the rise of the Wuxia school and the future of the Broken Water sect, she had to kill the person in front of her. This was because Lu Ping's sudden appearance from the water was clearly beyond the expectations of all the cultivators of Wuxia school. Moreover, the moment Shui Jiro made her move, she had already clearly understood the gap between her and Lu Tianping. Shui Jiro could be said to be the most outstanding direct disciple of the water of the Wuxia school in the past hundreds of years. Since the decline of the water of the Qingming River, she was the only direct disciple of the water of the Qingming River who was not the weakest among the 5 great Jizi of Wuxia school. Moreover, Shui Jiro's natal spiritual treasure, the raindrop bell, was also a first tribulation spiritual treasure. The raindrop bell was originally a natal spiritual treasure, refined by Shui Jiro herself. After Shui Jiro showed her outstanding talent and strength that far surpassed that of cultivators at the same level as her, the senior cultivators of the Qingming River of Wuxia school, who were extremely eager to revive the water of the Qingming River, helped Shui Jiro upgrade her natal spiritual treasure. Soon after she reached the Dharma manifestation stage, she passed the first thunder tribulation and became a natal spiritual treasure. Among the relatively famous third-generation cultivators in the cultivation world, it was not rare for them to have spiritual treasures bestowed by their sections. Even second tribulation spiritual treasures were common in the hands of the chief direct disciples of those sections. However, among these direct disciples, it was extremely rare for them to be able to upgrade their natal spiritual treasures to the level of spiritual treasures. Even Lu Ping himself, with the 13 magic treasures of the original Genshin formation, had only condensed the 9th restriction and reached the peak of the spirit-nourishing magic treasures. The power exerted by using one's own spirit treasure and using other spirit treasures was on a completely different level. When a cultivator with his own spirit treasure fought against a cultivator with other spirit treasures, he would always have a certain advantage. This was because he could control the spirit treasure more skillfully, activate the divine ability more quickly, and display a greater power of the divine ability. However, when Shui Jiro, who had all these, faced Lu Ping's rain bell, She saw a stream of concentrated bluish-purple real essence collide into her natal spiritual treasure. Shui Jiro felt that her natal spiritual treasure seemed to have fallen into the sticky water at this moment. No matter how hard she tried to ring the bell, the power was greatly reduced because of the obstruction of the water. After being discovered, Lu Ping soared into the sky from the water vein. He first used the water control incantation to weaken the rain bell, then used the wave-treading art to step into the void, sending a huge force into the Qingming River.